The world was not kind, not anymore. For me, Eris Kane, kindness was a story told in hushed tones, a myth from before the Great War, before the sky cities of Ethelgard turned their backs on the scorched earth below. My world was the Rustlands, a sprawling graveyard of twisted metal and crumbling concrete skeletons that once touched the clouds. Each morning the sun rose like a smear of dirty orange, casting long, menacing shadows across the ruins. My little brother Leo and I knew these shadows well. We were scavengers, picking through the bones of the past for anything useful. A forgotten tin of food, a strip of clean cloth, or a rare piece of untainted scrap metal. It was a tough life, a life of constant looking over your shoulder. Leo, with his wide, curious eyes and a smile that could melt even the rusted heart of a forgotten war machine, was my entire world. He was only 8, a child of the ruins, born long after the sky fell. He saw wonder where I saw only danger. He'd traced the faded murals on broken walls, imagining the lives of the people who lived there. I, ever the protector, would pull him along, my hand clasped tightly around his. I was 16 but felt much older. The weight of our survival rested squarely on my shoulders, a burden I carried without complaint. My only goal was simple and fierce. Keep Leo safe, keep him smiling, keep him alive in a world that seemed determined to forget we even existed. One sweltering afternoon, we ventured deeper into the Silent Quarter, a part of the old city forbidden by the elders. The stories said ghosts of the war still roamed there, but we were desperate. Supplies were low and Leo's cough was getting worse. It was there, inside the hollowed-out shell of what might have been a library or a museum, that Leo spotted it, a glint of impossible blue nestled within a cracked display case. It was a crystal, no bigger than my fist, pulsating with a soft inner light. It seemed to hum a song only Leo could hear, a melody that made the dust motes dance in the slivers of sunlight piercing the collapsed roof. Leo, being Leo, reached for it without a second thought, his small fingers brushing against its smooth, cool surface. The moment his skin touched the crystal, everything changed. A blinding flash of azure light erupted from the stone, throwing Leo back. I screamed, rushing to his side, but the crystal shot towards me like a living thing. It slammed into my chest, not with force, but with a strange, cool embrace. Light and energy surged through my veins, a torrent of forgotten power. The crystal dissolved, sinking into my skin and leaving behind a glowing, intricate mark over my heart. I felt different. The air itself seemed to bend to my will. A loose girder above us creaked ominously, and without thinking, I threw up a hand. The massive piece of metal froze in midair, held by an unseen force, before gently settling on the floor. I was a Skybinder, a wielder of the ancient powers that were thought to be lost forever. Their discovery did not go unnoticed. The sky was not as empty as it seemed. From the floating city of Ethelgard, watchers were always vigilant, their cold, mechanical eyes scanning the surface for any sign of ancient power. The surge of energy from the Skybinder crystal was like a lighthouse beacon in the darkest night. Before I could even begin to understand the power now thrumming beneath my skin, a shadow fell over the ruins. It was a sleek silver skiff, descending from the clouds with a menacing silence. Armored soldiers, their faces hidden behind impassive white helmets, rappelled down, their movements precise and terrifying. My heart hammered against my ribs. I shoved Leo behind me, a protective instinct overriding my shock and fear. The soldiers ignored me completely. Their leader, a tall figure with a cruel glint in his visor, pointed a metallic finger directly at Leo. "There he is!" The soldier's voice crackled through a speaker, devoid of any emotion. "The catalyst. Secure the boy." Leo whimpered, clinging to my leg. I stood my ground, my newfound power buzzing, but I was untrained, a novice. The soldiers moved with brutal efficiency. One of them simply pushed me aside, the force sending me sprawling into the dust. They grabbed Leo, his small fists beating uselessly against their impenetrable armor. He cried out my name, his voice filled with a terror that shattered my soul into a million pieces. "He is the key!" the leader declared, his voice booming across the desolate plaza. "The key to the second fall! Ethelgard's glorious destiny will be realized." I didn't understand the words, but I understood the threat. They were taking my brother. They were taking my everything. I scrambled to my feet, desperation giving me a surge of strength. I tried to summon the power again to stop them, to pull their ship from the sky. But all that came out was a pathetic flicker of blue light from my hands. It was too new, too wild, too untamed. The soldiers were already ascending, dragging a struggling Leo with them. From the skiff's ramp, Leo looked down, his tear-streaked face a portrait of pure fear. "Eris!" he screamed one last time, his voice swallowed by the roar of the engines as the ship shot back into the clouds, disappearing from sight. I was left alone in the sudden, deafening silence of the ruins. The dust settled around me, each particle a reminder of my failure. But as the grief washed over me, something else took its place, a cold, hard resolve. They had made a mistake. They had taken my brother. They had underestimated me. I looked up at the empty sky, my fists clenched, the skybinder mark on my chest glowing with a fierce, determined light. I would get him back, no matter the cost. My quest began with a single step, away from the only home I had ever known. The Rustlins were dangerous, but the path ahead was even more so. I was hunted. Ethelgard's sky patrols scoured the surface, their searchlights cutting through the gloom of the perpetual twilight. On the ground, things were no better. Feral machines, relics of the old war, roamed the wastes, and desperate gangs of survivors would rob a traveler for a mouthful of water. For days, I traveled alone, surviving on my wits and the fledgling power that sometimes obeyed my commands and sometimes sputtered into nothing. I was losing hope when I stumbled quite literally into my first companion. He was cowering in a ditch, his fine clothes torn and muddy. It was Kairos, a disgraced prince from Ethelgard, cast down to the surface for speaking out against the new regime. Kairos was, to put it mildly, useless on the surface. He complained about the dirt, the food, and the distinct lack of servants. But he knew Ethelgard. He knew their tactics, their technology, and the political turmoil brewing in the Sky City. He told me about the prophecy of the Second Fall, a twisted belief that sacrificing a child with a unique energy signature, a catalyst like Leo, would grant Ethelgard ultimate power and cleanse the unworthy from the world below. His information was vital, and despite his whining, he had a good heart. He agreed to help me, hoping to redeem himself and stop the madness he had fled. Our fragile alliance was a start. Our journey next led us to the Whispering Marshes, a place shunned by scavengers and sky patrols alike. It was the domain of Venna, a witch who commanded the twisted flora and fauna of the swamp. Venna hated anyone from the sky. Her family had been wiped out in the early days of the war by Ethelgard's fire. She saw Kairos and immediately wanted to feed him to her collection of carnivorous plants. But she also saw the skybinder mark on my chest. She recognized the ancient power, a magic that balanced the earth and sky, a magic Ethelgard had stolen and corrupted. Venna agreed to join us, not out of love for our cause, but out of a shared enemy and a grudging respect for the power I now wielded. The final member of our strange little group was found deactivated in a scrap heap. We called him Mika, a synthetic automaton from the war era, his memory banks wiped clean. Venna managed to reactivate him, and he whirred to life with the personality of a curious child. He had no memory of his purpose or his past, but his body was a walking arsenal and a database of old-world geography. He was loyal, surprisingly gentle, and possessed immense strength. And so, the Fellowship was formed, a girl with the power of the sky, a disgraced prince, a bitter witch, and a forgotten robot. A truly bizarre team, united by a single desperate mission to climb the sky and bring Leo home. The path to Ethelgard was fraught with peril. It was a constant two-front war. From above, sleek Ethelgardian drones hunted us relentlessly, their sensors searching for the unique energy signature of the Skybinder. I had to learn to suppress my power, to hide my light under a bushel lest it bring death from the clouds. From below, the dangers were more primal. Mutated beasts stalked us through shattered highways, and pockets of radiation from the old war made entire landscapes impassable. Every day was a battle for survival, a test of our strength and our will to continue. Yet, with every challenge we overcame, our bond deepened, forged in the fires of adversity. I, who had only ever looked out for myself and my brother, found myself becoming a leader. I wasn't loud or commanding, but I led with a quiet determination that inspired my companions. I learned to trust Kairos's knowledge of our enemy, to respect Vena's wisdom of the natural world, and to rely on Mika's unwavering strength. I discovered that my power was not just a weapon, but a source of hope. I used it to clear paths, to purify tainted water, to shield my friends from harm. My small acts of creation were a rebellion in a world defined by destruction. I was not just fighting for Leo, I was fighting for the very idea that things could be better. Friendship, I learned, was a power all its own. I saw it in the way Kairos would stand watch for me while I practiced controlling the air currents, his initial arrogance replaced by a genuine concern. I saw it in Vena's gruff gestures of kindness, like finding a rare medicinal herb for a wound or teaching me how to listen to the whispers of the wind. I even saw it in Mika, who would often present me with a pretty, unrusted bolt or a colorful piece of sea glass he had found, his simple way of showing he cared. We were a mismatched family, but we were a family nonetheless, and our shared purpose made us stronger than any of us could have been alone. As we finally stood at the base of the Titan's spire, the last remaining ground-to-sky elevator that led to Athelgard, I looked at my friends. The disgraced prince, the vengeful witch, the memory-wiped robot. We were all broken in our own way, just like the world around us, but together, we were something more. Hope was no longer a distant myth. It was real, and it was standing right beside me. Looking up at the city in the clouds, the Skybinder mark on my chest pulsed with a steady, calm light. I would face the forces of Ethelgard. I would save my brother, and I would restore the balance between the wounded earth and the arrogant sky. My quest was just beginning.